welcome to this very special edition of the Career Cafe. With us today from the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia are Matt Cabrey, Patty Day. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks, Troy. It's great to be here.
The pleasure's all mine, I promise. Matt, Patty, please tell us about what you do for the Chamber.
Patty?
Take it away.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us here. We're really excited to be able to share our stories. So I manage what we call our Education Talent Action Team, and it's really our portfolio of offerings at the Chamber that focus on retention and development opportunities, and that really is anywhere from career exposure for middle school students all the way up through into lifelong learning development opportunities for young professionals and just those who are looking to further their education and knowledge.
Thank you.
And I'll share, Troy, I'll give a little context for what I call our Chamber family. So the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia is a membership organization that provides a variety of services that help businesses to grow. And under the Chamber umbrella, we have several what we call councils. There's the Arts and Business Council, the CEO Council for Growth, the Young Professionals Council, and a council that I lead that's called Select Greater Philadelphia Council. We're all about business attraction. So while the Chamber's here to help companies that are located in the 11-county region of Greater Philadelphia to grow, the team that I'm part of at the Chamber is all about bringing new businesses to Greater Philadelphia. So we're oftentimes promoting the assets of our community from a business perspective and from a quality of life perspective to those who are outside of the region. So it could be California or Washington State, or it could be Europe, Asia, South America. And ultimately our goal is to encourage a company, an entrepreneur, an investor to think about Greater Philadelphia as a place to establish and grow a business and their career, frankly, to come here and start their career and be part of our community. And that's essentially what our focus is at Select Greater Philadelphia.
If I can give a shameless plug as a Chamber member,
sure.
It's tremendous value, and Downtown Area School District is proud to be a member of the Chamber.
We're thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you. The value of the professional development that I've gotten individually has been huge. The value of the connections I've made. It happens to be, in my opinion, the single most positive networking organization I've ever been a part of. There's just always a really good feeling of everyone trying to help each other out.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that connectivity is one of those things that we're really proud of and focused on. Yeah.
To that end, we brought the both of you in here today to talk to our students about, as folks that work with lots of different businesses, you've had a lot of exposure to a lot of corporate success or nonprofit success. You yourselves have been successful in ascending to the career heights at which you currently reside. So there's a lot of wisdom that you've gained over the course of your careers. So I want to take you back in time for just a moment to Matt Cabrey, Patty Day, a high school senior, right? About to enter the next phase of post-secondary life. What do you wish you could have told that person then?
I think looking back, I think I would have liked to have known that I didn't have to know everything then. I didn't necessarily have a lot of guidance when I was choosing what my post-secondary experience was going to look like. I actually shared with Matt last week that basically I was told you join the military or you go to college. And I had a stepbrother at the time that highly encouraged me not to join the military. So I went to college, and I went to college where I knew somebody and where I was going to be comfortable, but didn't necessarily know what it is that I wanted to pursue. And I felt like I needed to know what that was. And what I learned through my experience and what I try to instill on young people who are in that situation now is that take this time to kind of explore and figure out what it is. I mean, if you know you want to be a doctor, then go for it and take those courses that are going to help you. But it's really a time to understand who you are and understand your own development and what it is that's going to make you happy in the future.
To your point, 30% of our four-year college students are changing majors. 75% of them are working in unrelated career fields. that sort of journey of self-discovery really is super important.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of focus on what the skills are that you're getting, and what I hear from the employers that I speak with on a daily basis is that technical skills are important, absolutely, but it's really those essential skills or power skills that you're really going to develop through the classes that you take, through the relationships that you make, that are really what are going to make you successful in the future, because the need for adaptability and flexibility and critical thinking are all the things that you're going to pick up when you're going through your courses.
I love that the way you characterize them as essential or power skills. One of the gripes I've had with the notion of soft skills is that it has that passive connotation, but they're actually like quite affirmative. And you have to consciously develop them. It's not a soft or passive thing at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Matt, you've got 18-year-old Matt Cabrey by the shoulders. What do you say?
Wow. That's a good one. And I have to say, when I think back on my senior year of high school, first I'll share with you that I didn't love high school for a variety of reasons. I was okay, but I was in a weird place for, again, a variety of reasons. But three things really stand out for me of what I wish I knew then that I know now. And one is the feelings I was having of uncertainty are normal, healthy. The second is that I wasn't alone in those feelings, that everybody around me was experiencing the same type of challenge. For the most part, there were a couple that were either super confident and knew exactly what they wanted to do, or they were faking it. But I think 98% of us were kind of experiencing that moment of not quite sure what I want to do. And it's okay to not quite sure know what you want to do. And the third would be that it's okay to change your mind. I felt at that time that once I set out on a path that I had to stick with it. And in some senses, you do want to stick to a commitment, but at the same time, you want to be able to adjust, re-navigate, think through based on learning new information, that this path that you initially embarked on is actually a little bit different than what you thought it was going to be. And it's okay to shift gears and try this path, especially if you're not happy. There's nothing worse than going through a journey that is painful and unpleasant. And then you step back and you realize, why am I doing this? And, so those are the three that stand out for me. We're not alone. Those feelings of kind of uncertainty are normal, and it's okay to change your mind.
It's interesting, Matt, that you start from the premise of you wish you could have told yourself about connection with others, right?
Yeah.
That others are going through some of the same things you are. And when I think about the value proposition of the Greater Philly Chamber and how I guess you gravitated subconsciously toward this work, it's all about that sort of common connection of like, we're all in this together, and there are regional challenges and regional strengths that we have.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I would like to talk just a little bit of shop with you guys while I have you.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that you've shared with me in conversation before is that sort of the value of the Amazon pitch experience was that it provided us an opportunity to take a 30,000-foot view at all the things that we have to offer as a region and what our strengths are, and then maybe some areas for targeted growth. Can you describe, from your perspective, what was that experience like, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, sure. So I'll set the stage briefly. It was Thursday, September 7th of 2017, when Amazon issued a press release that basically said they're seeking a second headquarters somewhere in North America. And there was about a 90-day window of opportunity for communities around North America to respond to this RFP, request for proposals.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very fast. So we had to collect our information and submit it, I think it was October 19th. And that's essentially what happened. Amazon ultimately received 238 proposals, and they sorted through all those. And I think we all know today that they've chosen to establish primary site in Virginia, the greater Washington, D.C. area. But the exercise that we as a community went through in the 11-county neighborhood of Greater Philadelphia was really positive and really helpful. And I will say, stepping back for a moment, we at Select Greater Philadelphia, we're used to thinking regionally. So this notion wasn't actually that new to us, but it was enlightening to see how new it was to others who are specifically thinking about their own county. One of the distinguishing characteristics, Troy, of the RFP from Amazon was they actually were seeking one response for what's known as the MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area.
Interesting.
And most regions were not able to provide just one response for the full MSA because there's a lot of collaboration that's required. And to be candid, that's exactly what happened in our neighborhood. There were 5 proposals submitted to the Amazon leadership team for consideration of sites around Greater Philadelphia. Ultimately, there was a core team put together that was really what we would refer to as the official informal regional response to the Amazon opportunity that did engage representatives in each of our 11 counties to think through how do we put our best foot forward as a community. And that's ultimately what came through in the proposal that was presented. It gets a little bit stickier with the specific real estate sites because there are only so many sites that officially met the criteria that Amazon was seeking, which caused a little bit of a challenge in kind of navigating this whole process. But ultimately, and in the spirit of our conversation, one of the things we really learned and emphasized was the power of the talent that we have in the Greater Philadelphia region. The power not only of the higher education institutions, which we historically have always talked about, the strength of our colleges and universities and other kinds of educational institutions that are in that post-secondary community, including the tech path and the kind of tech IT path as well that's not part of a traditional 4-year college program. But what the other thing that really stood out for us at Select Greater Philadelphia and ultimately for the larger working group around the Amazon project was the K through 12 strength and the workforce of tomorrow that an organization, whether it's Amazon or another company, they're going to be looking for talented people in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Kind of build a pipeline.
That's right. And those are the folks who are in kindergarten and first grade going through the Downingtown Area School District, frankly, and how are we preparing them for the future? So in the end, it was really a great coming together in collaborative spirit of identifying those gems that we have here, but we didn't necessarily always recognize them as a gem.
Yeah. And if I just may add, I think one of the other things that we learned about the immediate urgency of what at Amazon would need is that while we do a great job of training young people in our post-secondary or those alternative schools, we're doing a better job of keeping them here once they graduate, but there still were not enough of individuals with those skills that could meet their need on day one. And so it was a really good opportunity for a lot of people to come around and say, okay, what are those needs? What are the opportunities, whether that be Amazon or not, within our community?
Right.
And how do we really increase the visibility to the density of tech jobs that are available here in our region so that we can do a better job of keeping people here?
Yeah.
Or attracting them from elsewhere as well.
Absolutely.
I'm a transplant, as Patty, you are too,
Yes.
and both from New York. And I fell in love with this town the second I stepped off the train at Suburban Station. It's magnificent. It feels like America's largest small town.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody kind of knows everybody, and there's a character of upward mobility and striving for something better.
Yeah.
It's almost palpable. And maybe you call it the Rocky effect, or maybe it's that Rocky, pardon me, sort of communicated what was already there in a really
That's right.
prescient way. Thinking about character, and it's an odd segue, but follow me.
Mm-hmm.
What characteristics have helped you be successful throughout your career path?
It's a great question. Yeah. Sure, I'll start because it's something that I actually really value and encourage, and it's something that I'm proud of, and I'm not sure where I got it, and I think it's just one of those innate things. It may have something to do with the fact that I'm the youngest of 7 and I grew up in an environment that needed to pull on some of this. I think it also has to do with the influence of my parents and how they were different but also specific in guiding us as young people. And that characteristic is optimism. I'm a very optimistic person. I look at the glass half full. I try to surround myself with other folks who share that, and if they don't, I like to actually come in and hopefully infuse it in a way that is appropriate and welcoming as opposed to too pushy. And I do encourage people to look on the bright side and think positive. And when you're faced with a challenge, how can you turn that around and make it an opportunity? Yeah.
And I think for myself, I really think I would focus on perseverance and adaptability. As you said, I'm not from the greater Philadelphia region. I graduated with an English degree for my undergrad, moved to New York City for a couple of years, which is the most exciting time to live there when you're poor and you don't care about being poor.
That's right.
But I wanted something more, and so I literally had come to Philadelphia for a day trip and had seen it, so that's really cute here. I think I'm going to move here. And then I saw the art museum, and I said, I think I'm going to get a job there. And lo and behold, about a month later, I had moved everything into Philadelphia, had a job at the art museum, and didn't know a soul. And that was really tough to move by yourself and not know anybody. And so I think the perseverance part really kind of, takes charge there. And I just kind of, moved my way through a couple of different jobs. I loved my time at the art museum, but it wasn't what was for me. And I had to just keep figuring out who I was and what I was good at. And that kind of came naturally through opportunities and relationships that I had, and how I ultimately ended at the chamber. And I've been there for 8 years now. And but I had to be open to the experiences that life was going to give me to be able to get to the spot that I got to now. And I think it was an interesting and fun journey. And I'm glad that I stuck it out, because there were some times that I was ready to pick up and move back to New York or go to Chicago. And but I really, and it's been amazing to see Philadelphia and the region grow as it has over the last 16 years.
It's about how long I've been here as well.
Yeah.
And it is amazing how much things have changed in the greater metro and in the city specifically. My wife and I are both Temple alum. My wife is on the board of overseers for the Hillel. We go down to campus at least twice a year for different functions there, and the amount of construction that we're seeing in our own backyard is really quite amazing.
Yeah.
This district is expanding like gangbusters as well. There's all kinds of construction projects. Can you talk about sort of where you see Philadelphia heading in the next few years?
Sure, I'll start that. I'll start with where I always do, that we're stronger as a region than we are as any one county or any one neighborhood within that county, which is why I often encourage folks to think of Greater Philadelphia as one big neighborhood, and that we're all in this together. And that if we can be successful in breaking down these barriers of us versus them, whether it's county versus county or city versus suburbs or New Jersey versus Delaware versus Pennsylvania,
Right.
that we're going to be a much more successful community when we work together and collaborate towards a common goal. So from a regional perspective, I really see us continuing this upward trajectory and this nurturing of skills that will allow our community to continue to distinguish itself as a leader in a variety of industry sectors, mostly the life sciences, research and development, financial services, advanced manufacturing. Manufacturing in general has very deep, proud roots in Greater Philadelphia and in towns across the neighborhood. And that's evolving into a much more sophisticated, technologically driven, advanced manufacturing platform. So those three areas, including I would add a fourth with the energy sector, which is fueling a lot of the manufacturing growth, but the access we have to safe, affordable, and reliable energy is something we frankly take for granted as a community. And it's not until we go to other places in the world that we realize how fortunate we are to have access and proximity to safe, reliable, affordable energy alternatives and sources. So I'm bullish, pulling on my optimistic nature,
Sure.
That we're going to continue to see great collaboration, which is going to continue to lead to great growth.
And I would take it from the workforce development side, because that's where I spend my time thinking, and I love that you ended on collaboration, because I think there's a real great opportunity for the future of our region through greater collaboration. And it's either whether that be through the programs that are working with our residents to prepare them for the jobs of now and the jobs of the future, collaboration amongst the business community. How do we work together rather than against one another so that we can support, if I have an operation and there's only so much room for mobility, what are partnerships that I can develop to help build that pipeline for somebody, keep them here in our region? And there's a lot of opportunity and energy around young people. And as Matt had alluded to earlier, there's a lot of young people that need our help and our guidance and our support, and there's a lot of people that are willing to do that. We just have to do a better job of making those connections for them.
Well, and hence why we're here, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Makes a lot of sense.
I would also piggyback on that as well and say that a lot of young people can actually teach us how to shape the future and what's important to them and what are they thinking. And frankly, we're hearing that from a lot of folks who are coming to Greater Philadelphia because of access to opportunity and affordability issues. And we hear that a lot from folks who are choosing to establish their life and their career here as opposed to somewhere else in the world, much like you guys experienced as well.
Yeah, and just to add on that one more, one of the things that I focus on a lot is our young professionals and how do we better understand what's important to them personally, professionally, and civically so that we can do a better job of translating that back to their employers and just rooting that into our community to help root them into our community. And it's of no surprise, some of the things that are most important to them are professional development so that they can continue to hone in on their skills, but also the civic aspect of that and community. And we've had some great programs where we've been able to connect our young professionals with some individuals in the inner city and to really showcase this is what opportunity looks like. This is my story and how I got to where I am, and just making those connections so that there's a smaller bridge between, I'm in high school still and I'm having a business person coming to talk to me. It's somebody with a closer age range, and that really kind of makes a difference. We've seen that.
And that civic engagement piece that you speak to is so important. Ever since Bowling Alone came out in the 90s, we've read about this sort of decline of civic organizations that used to unite communities. Mm-hmm. When you think about the sort of zero-sum nature of politics or business sometimes that you would refer to of folks looking at themselves strictly as competitors, those are inherently competitive paradigms, right? And the perception is that there's only so much of a pie to go around, whereas community, like the more we give to one another, the more we have, right? Mm-hmm. The better off we are. And the chamber is one of those sort of enduring institutions that people can still find like-minded folks to give. It's very important. It's crucial. It's why I've enjoyed my time in the Young Professionals Council.
Yeah, but like-minded folks with people who are different from you as well. And I think that we strive to make sure that we really include that diversity of individuals and diversity of thought.
Mm-hmm. So we've dipped our toe into aspirational and values. And I know that people can be aspirational and inspirational to us over the course of our careers. Who's somebody that you have admired or have tried to pattern your career after, or maybe a mentor that reached out and really helped you?
It's funny, I actually answered this question just yesterday.
Yeah.
I was taking a leadership development course actually, and they asked who is somebody that you admire their values. And I have to say, it's actually, you can tell right when I say this, a mix between my current supervisor and my past supervisor. My past supervisor at my last position was someone I was 5 days younger than his daughter, so he really kind of took me under his wing. But he was somebody that believed in me. I valued how he works with other people. I valued his integrity and his honesty and his transparency. If I'd screwed something up, he wouldn't yell at me. He said, it's not going to make any difference if I jump up and down and scream at you. Let's figure out how to work this together. So it allowed me to learn and grow and not be afraid of making mistakes, because I know that there are generally ways that you can fix them. And then my current supervisor is just a brilliant woman who does not just supports me in my growth and development, and my trajectory at the chamber has been vastly different from where I started to where I am now. And I think that's through both of those individuals helping me believe in myself. Steve, my former boss, who once said, you weren't raised to be a leader, which was true. but I think you can learn to be a leader.
Right.
And that's something that I've really gotten through those two relationships, which has been really instrumental in my growth.
The value of having supervision that's solutions oriented is so amazing. And thank you for sharing that, Patty, because we've all had the boss that maybe was a little too focused on the Monday morning quarterbacking in the moment, rather than thinking about how do we get to where we need to be, and we can do the post-mortem after the mortem, right? Makes a lot of sense. Matt, how about you?
Sure. There are many that we pull on in different chapters of our career and our personal life as well. And one that really stands out for me is the CEO of a pharmaceutical company where I had the pleasure of working for about 10 years. And he, and I'll use his name because I don't think he would mind, Matt Emmons is his name. He's actually a native of Nutley, New Jersey. And he joined Shire Pharmaceuticals back in 2003. As the new CEO, and he set an environment and a tone that was entrepreneurial, that was collaborative, that was centered on what I refer to now, but I didn't recognize or probably didn't even hear the term at the time, until that time, is measured risk-taking. Before that, it was always about taking risks, which at times can be perceived as reckless.
Right.
Measured risk-taking, especially in a highly regulated industry, is a challenge to the team to think differently and try some new things and do things in a way that they haven't been done before. Let's not just keep doing the same things the same way they've always been done, because that's how they've always been done.
Right.
And one of the most enlightening moments for me actually was being offered this opportunity to join this pharmaceutical company, because I never had any pharmaceutical experience at the time. And the leadership, thanks to Matt, and the tone he was setting was one that was, let's gather people who are going to come in with different ideas, with different perspectives than what we would historically get by just recruiting folks whose whole career have been spent in the life sciences. And I really valued that. And Matt also shared a particular perspective, several of them, but one that I'll share here is it's good to kind of try something new every 4 to 6 years. You know, he lumped on or grabbed on to 5. But I think any time in between that 3 to 7, 4 to 6 type of time frame, it doesn't mean you have to leave the organization. It means, how do you evolve into something else that's going to challenge you and add value personally, professionally, and to the organization? And I really admire that way of thinking, so you don't get kind of in a rut of doing the same thing over and over again.
I had a mentor that spoke to the value of 7.
Yeah.
He was a biologist by training, and then of course ended up in the advertising world.
Sure, makes perfect sense, right?
As one does. And he said that over the course of 7 years, your body actually completely changes cells.
Yeah.
Right. So at that point, like, you're basically a new person.
Yeah.
So if you're doing what you were doing, exactly what you were doing 7 years ago, like, how can you?
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
How about the sort of flip side of that coin? It's important that we learn by example, but it's also important that we learn by either counterexample or through adversity and failure, right? What do you think is the hardest one lesson that you have in your career?
Yeah. I'll give you a gut reaction to that question, Troy, and go with impatience is how I'll capture it. I've learned that it's important to give something a chance before shifting too quickly, which can be counter to some of the perspectives I was sharing earlier, that one, it's okay to change your mind, but maybe do it in a way that's a little bit more thoughtful. And early in my career, I shifted, and I think I shifted too early. And it's one of my, what I call, career regrets, that if I stayed on this particular track, I may have been in a different place. But I shifted and landed somewhere that I quickly realized was probably not the best career move I could have made. It wasn't horrible, but it changed the trajectory of a path that I had been on to a different path that was okay. But I realized in hindsight that if I stuck it out in this other role, that different doors would have opened for me than the doors that were starting to open for me or not open for me in this new role. Yeah, so patience, I think it goes right up there with, it's okay to change your mind, but be a little bit more patient and balance that with taking measured risks. Yeah.
I think similarly, and actually goes back to your rule of 7 or rule of 5, is that for me, comfort. Becoming too comfortable someplace, and so that you're not learning new things, you're not challenging yourself. And I've had that experience with a previous position where I was also there for 8 years, and the only thing that drove me out of there was change in leadership. And otherwise, I likely would have been there for a bit. Although I did start grad school at that point, so hopefully that would have changed things. There were times at the chamber, I've been there for 8 years, and that is a long time to be comfortable. But we have leadership that often changes things up for us. And I've been privileged to be a part of that pretty much, through most of those changes. And so that has kept me there and helped me get out of that comfort zone. I deal very well with black and white, not so great with gray. And those shifts and changes have had to make me get more comfortable with the gray areas. And that's really what life is a bunch of gray areas. Having been too comfortable someplace, I think has provided, maybe I didn't provide myself with other opportunities that I could have taken.
And the notion of sort of forward-looking and optimism, right, is important, and so is sort of appreciating the moment, right, and taking stock of what we have around us and gratitude. In your current position, what are you most grateful for, and what are you most excited about?
I love working with people, which is something that really surprised me. I get really excited about hearing their ideas and building relationships. We've done a couple of really great things through my work on the Education and Talent Action Team. We've developed a really great resource guide about how to engage employees. We surveyed people to figure out what was important to them. The best thing that I've done over the last 3 years is I've been managing a mentorship program that I created. And so we've connected young professionals with senior leaders within our region. And it's different than typical mentorship programs. And I get up and I beam every year now when I welcome them, because I'm not creating a product that's going to sit on the shelf or a program that will be done in 90 minutes. I'm creating lifelong relationships. And that just brings such joy to me to be able to be a part of that and to see those blossom.
And not to blow smoke, but that piece of the Young Professionals Council is really the magnet that drew me to it in the first place. You'll see my application soon. But it's also the thing that during our orientation, just as much as you're beaming about it now, it's that similar sort of disposition of those folks that have been through it and the value that they take and the relationships that they built. So you think about that ripple effect for a moment, Patty, that you've really changed a lot of lives for the better.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Sorry, Matt, you have to follow that.
Yes. I'm going to build a little bit on Patty's perspective, because it does go hand in hand with engaging with others and collaborating with others. But for me, there's two that really stand out in my current role. One is kind of fundamental to who we are as people, which is this desire, this ability, this joy that we get out of helping others. I think by nature, we as humans like to help each other. It's part of our DNA. It's also something that we learn to do well, or it's something that we learn to suppress, depending on the environment you're in and the amount of risk that you're willing to take, and that others who are navigating you through life encourage you to take or not to take. But from a day-to-day business perspective, helping others come up with solutions to either a very specific opportunity or a very broad kind of vision. And what we do at Select Greater Philadelphia in attracting businesses to the Greater Philadelphia region, it's all about connecting and collaborating with academic, business, and civic leaders. So when we have a company who's coming here from outside the region, they want to learn about Greater Philadelphia, they want to learn about a specific industry, how hard it is to recruit talent, how hard it is to find talent that's already here for a specific kind of role. It's very satisfying for me to be able to make those connections and to ultimately help get that project across the finish line. The second thing that I really enjoy about my role with our Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia, and specifically with Select, is the freedom that we have to try new things, to the encouragement around how are we going to do this? How are we going to accomplish this goal? And a lot of people don't necessarily think about that as a freedom. And if they may miss the opportunity to exercise that, they think they have to operate in a structured box. And in some cases you do, but in most cases you actually do have the freedom to say, how about this idea? And one of my kind of mantras that I'm really fond of is it's one thing to have a vision, it's a totally different thing to actually implement that vision. So you can put out a really great idea, but it's going to take a lot of other folks to help you to implement it. And in some cases, you have a very small role in the implementation. You're kind of just guiding it, and it's the others around you, internally and externally, that you're partnering with to actually deliver on that vision. And when it happens, when it all comes together, you can step back and say, wow, we really accomplished something pretty cool here. And I encourage a lot of young people to think that way as well, to say, what do you want to accomplish and what's your journey to get there? And who are those around you that can help you to accomplish that? And the same thing happens in the work environment as well.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that one, is that to the freedom piece of it, I think we have an opportunity to be additive to a lot of processes. So we can think about what is the value that we as an organization and our relationships can bring to a process or initiative. And we have the opportunity to step back and say, I know what other folks are doing, what can we do that's different? And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. Troy, there's a blind spot to your right. We have a young man in the audience who has a question.
Oh, by all means.
Yeah.
So I have two. So you guys said that, it's okay to change your mind in like school and college, right? But like, isn't that like the opposite way, since like each time you change your major, it's $1,000 that go into
So,
that's how you're walking.
so for the folks watching, the question was posed about the sort of money value of the fact that changing your college major, while it's something we've encouraged, perhaps it's something that we didn't include in the discussion, if I'm hearing it correctly, right? Cost benefit, I suppose?
So that's a great question, and I actually have a young man that I mentor right now who's a freshman in college, and what I and some of my peers have suggested to him is explore and take those classes that are going to go towards your gen ed. And then those are classes that are going to count towards your degree, and it will not impact you as much when you are deciding what your actual major is when it comes time to have to declare it. So just making sure that you're experiencing different things, but those are to the extent that you can, those classes are going to be the ones that are going to help count towards your graduation credits.
And I also heard that you talked about like risks, right?
Sure.
So my question is, do you think that you should take risks if you can't afford the worst outcome of it?
So the question was asked about potential downside, if I'm hearing you correctly, right? That when you're making a measured risk or a calculated risk, should you take a risk if you can't afford the potential downside, right? The potential of it not working out?
But you're already in the below average,
In terms of probability of
like
success, or?
income.
Oh.
No, like your income and how wealthy you are compared to the rest of America.
Kind of financial risk. Yeah. So I would give a perspective around that there's a risk in everything we do, and it's a matter of risk tolerance. And ultimately, I would encourage folks to not take risks that would be so harmful that it would really alter in a significant way a specific part of an individual's day-to-day life activities or career journey. And I think it's that difference between, you want to take a risk, you want to take a measured risk, you want to be thoughtful, collect some data about where this could go, and have a good sense as to that window of success and the consequences, and that window of being less successful and what's at the other side of that and the consequences of being less successful. And if you start to dip below this line of this would really be devastating, then you need to shift gears, in my opinion, and not necessarily embark on that particular risk. So there's a scale kind of 10 being the best outcome, 1 being the worst. And if your tolerance is, I don't want to go below 4, then you got to go with a gut kind of decision here to say, I'm willing to push the envelope a little bit here, get as close to 4, maybe even dip closer to 3 on that scale, and be comfortable moving forward, knowing that you could turn it around and get it back up to an 8 or a 9 or maybe even a 10.
And that can also provide an opportunity to take a step back and say, is this the right course of action, or do I need to adjust it a little bit to help, reduce what that risk is? So sometimes our first ideas aren't always the right ideas, and so it helps us kind of, shift gears a little bit.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We have 30 seconds left. Any final pieces of advice for young people?
Work hard and have fun.
My best piece of advice that I would share with folks is, if you have an idea, you have a vision, share it with others, because those folks can actually help you accomplish that vision. And you have to have the confidence to say, hey, I have an idea. Can you help me with it?
That'll be where we leave it. Thank you, Patty Day, Matt Cabrey from the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia. This has been a very special edition of our Career Cafe program. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Troy.